We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
This I know, baby. head moving down the line. Oh.
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Mint Street Mondays. Let's go. Appreciate y'all being here with me this morning. I am your host, John Farmer. Man, crazy. So I had a whole nother, opening to the show planned. And obviously, things have changed, man. This is amazing. We got some breaking news, some breaking NFL news, and I know that look, this will be a show where we'll probably cover a lot more stuff than just Panther topics, right? But a lot of these topics do relate to the Panthers, especially the breaking news one this morning in more than one way. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But we won't talk about anything until we acknowledge the OCs. Shout out to my OCs, the original cats. Appreciate you guys for joining the membership. If you want to join, $1.99 per month, you can join the OCs, the original cats. So we appreciate you. We got a list that's growing substantially, and I appreciate you guys. I can't tell you how thankful I am for your membership and your friendship as well. So before we get started, I'll acknowledge some of the chat, see some of my faithful in here. Shout out to my man Steve. Steve said these playoffs are weak. If we can beat the Rams, I think we could have ran the table. Hey, man, anything could have been possible. My man Hollywood Gaming said he's fresh off the trip to Panama. Salute. My man Antonio McCullinham. I think I said that right. Hopefully I did, man. My good brother. What's good? My man Panthers J-Dub. Regular. Shout out to Nicole Ivory. Shout out Rare Gamer. Hey, man, I feel great, man. I feel good. I tell you what don't feel good. You may still, this was pointed out last week, and Brad been giving me heck about it ever since. So in my condo, there's an issue going on with like the wiring system inside the condo. And so you might still hear the smoke alarm. I changed the batteries. I did all the stuff that you're supposed to do. And for whatever reason, it is still chirping. So if you hear that in the background, I promise you we are safe. We have more than one inside the condo. However, it is going to be chirping throughout the live. So I just thought I'd let you know that. But yeah, feeling good. Shout out to Willie Smith. Appreciate you, man. Much of the country feeling like we should go the X route, and I'm here for it. Hey, man, don't know what that really means off top, but we'll get to it. All right, either way. So, look, breaking news, man. Breaking news. This is crazy. Right off the rip, Bills fire Sean McDermott. I was getting the show planned. I had a lot of stuff that I wanted to talk about. Obviously, the playoff stuff was going to be part of it. But I thought this was fascinating, and this is a multi-layered conversation to have, in my opinion. And there's a reason for it. First of all, shout out to Sean McDermott. Sean McDermott was our DC when we went to the Super Bowl back in 2015. A lot of his work that he did that season and, beyond got him the job in Buffalo. He's been there for 9 years, right? I think he went right after that season, if I'm not mistaken. It would track 9 years from the time. But here's what I find interesting, right? Media narratives are very interesting to me. We all create narratives, either in our mind or we say them out loud. If you have platforms like I do, you're going to create your own narratives. And I think that's okay. Because they're there to be refuted. Here's a narrative that needs to be refuted. Yes, they scored. The defense they gave up 31 points, right? But Sean McDermott, in my opinion, was not the reason that they lost this game. Not only that, Sean McDermott is not the reason that they've had such lack of playoff success. If you're going to give Josh Allen the title, Mike's a little hot. Sorry about that. If you're going to give Josh Allen the title of best quarterback in the league, right, then a lot of this has to lay at his feet. But here's something I'm tired of. I don't ever want to hear Josh Allen compared to Cam Newton ever again. It's a wrap. It is a wrap. It's over. Now, I understand that he might have had a lot more regular season success, but Josh Allen has come up short in the playoffs multiple times. And I was going through this conversation last night with Brad, who will be joining me here soon. And, one of the things I was saying was like, man, Cam Newton, the pathway for him to get to that 2015 season, or even the 2013 season for that matter, right? Now, obviously, it takes more than one person. It's a village, right? It takes a village. But at the same time, it's like, man, look at the division. Look at the conference. Not just the division, the conference, right? There was never an easier path for Josh Allen. Well, I say easy relatively because it's still the NFL. Everybody's trying to be good. Everybody's trying to win, right? But there was never a more clear path. Let's just use that word. It's a much better fitting word. There was never a more clear path for him to get where he was going than this path he had. All the big dogs out the way. Lamar's out the way. Pat's out the way. Joe's out the way. You know what I'm saying? Justin Herbert got bounced early. So there was never a path that was any clearer than there would be right now for you to get where you were going. The Peyton Manning path. But even if you look back at that, like Peyton Manning still had to go through Brady. Brady got hurt in 2008. The Pittsburgh Steelers broke through. But in 2009, the Pats was right back there. Now, granted, it was, Brady coming off of missing an entire year, but he was there, right? Even those Denver years, he still had to go through Tom to get to the Super Bowl. To beat us in 2015, still had to go through Tom in the AFC Championship. So, like, your opportunity was here. This was it. And it's like, it would be one thing if you got beat by a formidable opponent and you didn't turn the ball over 4 times. We didn't see that on our side. Cam had to go through Matt Ryan, who won an MVP the next season. Drew Brees, who was still playing at a high level, kind of hurt. They had a little defensive woes. But still, to go 15-1 and then have to go against Carson Palmer's Arizona Cardinals, who I think were 13-3 at that time, right? And not to mention, push forward, and you still got the Seattle Seahawks out there that are dominant, right? So this idea that Cam and Josh are on equal playing field, no, not at all. It's not even relatively close, if I'm being honest, right? Does he do some things a little bit better than Cam as far as efficiency is concerned? Sure, you could argue that. But I can make that argument for Cam if you fast forward to the year that he had North Turner, Curtis Samuel, DJ, Christian McCaffrey, and his completion percentage went from sub 59 to 67%, seemingly overnight, right? So this is something that, to me, Cam's injury really was the thing that kind of changed the trajectory of his career, because who knows what he would have became in this offense with where they were headed had he not gotten hurt. But I really wanted to take a stand on this because I'm like, dog, I am not going to hear this anymore. People saying that this man is so much better. Like, they talk about him the way that Cam should have been talked about in the things that he was doing, right? And look, as a result of it, your coach got whacked. So, hey, man, like I said, salute to Sean McDermott. Now, what does this mean for Evero? And that's really the second part of this. It means that he's 100% getting a job. There's too many openings. His name has been one of the most dominant names out there, not named Harbaugh, not named, Mike Tomlin, who's probably not going to take a job, right? Or Dayball. But his name has been out there. Second interview with, who was it? Pittsburgh is doing the second interview, right? So I don't think that any of this is just smoke and mirrors. Evero is more than likely going to get a job. Who are you going to hire? Who are we going to hire? Or are we going to just promote? From my understanding, I think Todd Wash is somebody, I may have the name wrong. I may be dead wrong. Forgive me if I am. But that's someone that they're thinking about, moving up in that place or bringing in someone else. I'd be calling Raheem. Raheem would be someone I would reach out to see, hey, man, you interested? You know what I'm saying? Come through. But, yeah, this is going to be fascinating to see how this all rolls out. But I do believe, there's 10 job openings now, right? Or 9 now, I think, because the Harbaugh taking the Giants job. Ejiro has to get one of these jobs because who else would be more qualified? Now, what'll be interesting to see who takes the Bills job, and I don't think it would be him, obviously. But it is fascinating. But I do just think that, like I said, more importantly, the conversations that surround Josh and Cam That stuff is dead, man. That stuff is dead. And we're going to get to another comparison in just a few because it's some stuff out there, right? But before we do, man, I just want to tap back in with you guys, see what you got to say. Somebody said, that's it, some of you. Ray, you mean for the O-line. Someone say you mean for the O-line. Raiders. I'm not sure what that's about. Cam would have talked about like Josh, but his prime cut short. Yeah, I agree. Couldn't agree. Sean Payton is a wizard. Both Josh and Allen know him personally. Yes, Josh and Allen. Can we just acknowledge all the former Panther players in the playoffs? It wasn't the players that's for dang sure. Yeah, a lot, a whole lot. You know, we were. I was discussing this with a friend, and I was like, man, what would happen? What would the Carolina Panthers have looked like had they not made the move to draft Bryce Young? And you could see a couple of different iterations of what they would have been, right? Coming off of the 7-10 season, Sam Darnold's your quarterback. You still got Baker in the building, Matt Corral in the building. I think that you roll with Sam because of what you had towards the end of the season. Now, I don't know that Sam Darnold becomes the Sam Darnold that we saw in Minnesota because that was that year in between where he had a chance to go to San Francisco and kind of be under that Kyle Shanahan tutelage and see what it really looks like, right? But let's just say that he becomes 60% of the, Minnesota Sam Darnold that we saw in the regular season anyway. I think the Carolina Panthers would have been a pretty formidable team and probably would have gone from 7 wins to 11 wins, more than likely to the playoffs that next season. Especially you're staying pat at number 9, which Jalen Carter did fall. That's probably who you're drafting, unless they make another decision. It was Scott now. We got to remember that. But, yeah, I mean, who knows the decision that they decide to make, at that point. So I think that we would have – I don't know that – I feel like we would have either been – the ceiling is Philly. The floor is Seattle. And Seattle might actually hit the ceiling because they may win it all this year, right? So it would have been somewhere in between that. But, yeah, cool to see a lot of Panther players. Cam has better peak, but Josh has the longevity. I can agree with that, just because of the Cam injury. But like I said, when you look at what Cam was, especially when you look at what they did to put around Cam, right? The things that they put around Cam towards the, end or whatever. The personnel, then the offensive play call in North Turner. Things started to change. You saw a completely different Cam Newton that last season that he was healthy up until the point where his shoulder got blown up than you had ever seen before. A more efficient, better in the quick game, more efficient in his deep ball passing. Like a lot changed. A whole lot changed. Says, I hate to compare Josh Allen to Cam Newton, but that Denver defense was just too much for the kid. It was. And if you don't have, I just talked about it, quick game, man. If everything's a long developing play and you got Von Miller who is just absolutely wrecking from the edge, there's just really no answers there, right? So you're just holding on to the ball for too long. Way, way too long. So, all right. So back to it. I wanted to react to some of the things that Dan Morgan had to say in his press conference. I thought a couple of the things were really interesting. Some of it was, just the same old stuff that you kind of heard throughout the season. But I am interested to see exactly what direction they decide to go in the draft, whether they stay at 19 or not. I thought watching the playoffs was extremely interesting because the quarterback play, man, you could put that, especially that last quarter of Bryce, man, you could put that up against any quarterback that we've seen play, not named, well, I would even say Caleb. That throw from Caleb last night was unbelievable. Unbelievable. But Bryce played an amazing, wild card game. And it's some of the best football that we've seen being played in these playoffs, if I'm just being frank. But I'm interested to see what they decide to do at 19 because there's so many different ways you can go. When you watch, teams, get after the quarterback, when you see what the Texans did yesterday, man, Will Anderson, strip sack. It seemed like every time you turn around, man, they was in Drake May's face, right? And the defense, I think that's going to be the calling card because I still don't think Denver's out of it. I know they lost Bo Nix, which is a crazy, crazy thing to win that game and to lose him in the fashion that you did, especially at the end of the game like that. But I think that, the better pass rush that you can have, I mean, that Milton Williams signing for New England was unbelievable, right? And it kind of makes me mad because it was us first, and then obviously we got beat out. But, the idea that if you can rush with 4 and get home, what it does for your defense, even if you don't now, a lot of these teams are blitzing. A lot of these teams are bringing, a lot of exotic blitzes, pressures, twists, stunts, all that kind of stuff. But I think in the heart of hearts, everybody would love to be able to just rush 4 down linemen. And there's a few teams out there that can do that consistently, and Houston's one of them. And so I don't know if you see any of these guys in this draft on the level of a Will Anderson, right? But I'll be interested to see if they even, consider. Now, based on what Dan Morgan said in the press conference, I don't think this would happen, but it would be interested to see if they would consider moving up. If they see a player that they like, that they really, really like, that they would consider moving up for. But I'm going to pull up the press conference here just to listen to some of it, some of the things. I mean, it's kind of a long one, so we'll listen to quite a bit of it, maybe chime in when Brad joins us as well to listen to some of this and just, see what Dan had to say.
Any questions you guys have?
Dan, how much can you share with us regarding Evero's contract extension?
Yeah, so we aligned him and Dave up, before the season, and we think highly of EJ. EJ has a really great football mind. We love his defense. It's a really aggressive defense, and
Cap. I love his defense too. Aggressive, not so much. But this is all the coach, the GM speak stuff. You kind of have to say these things, right? You don't want to go up there and give it up, man. Especially when you're sitting up there for 30-something minutes, and you start, man, down the stretch, we kind of wish there would have been a little bit more aggression, all that kind of stuff. Then the eyebrows start to raise like crazy. But I also think, as I said, I think in their heart, in the back of their mind, they know that this is the end, that he's going to get a job. And look, in my opinion, he done enough to do it. I mean, look, we played the Rams tough twice. The Rams look like they can probably be the team that win the Super Bowl. I got Seattle personally coming out of the NFC, but it wouldn't shock me if it's the Rams. And the fact that you were able to contain them once and beat them, contain them again and almost beat them, it's going to speak well for you, even if that last drive was kind of suspect.
I think as we continue to add players to the defense, I think that you'll see this defense kind of come together. We made a lot of improvements on the defensive side of the ball this year, and we'll continue to get better and add pieces, and we're up for that challenge.
That's the big. You aligned his contract and Canales is prior to the 25 season.
Yes, correct.
That was a smart move. It was a very smart move, especially because you didn't know what was going to happen. You got a variable there. Like if he is not as successful when we retool the defense, which yes, they did retool. Let me say this. You did retool, but he still was able to squeeze a lot of talent out of some of these guys that might not necessarily be the best. Let's just call it what it is, man. DJ Wanham, Pat Jones, these guys are good, no doubt. DJ was, it looked completely different this year than it did last year, right? If you'd have told me this year that DJ Wanham would have looked how he did basically the whole season, I wouldn't have believed you, especially from what you saw last year down the stretch. But here we are. Even some of the linebackers, man, to get what he got out of Claudin Cherlis, Christian Roseboom, who was who got sprung into action because of some injuries and some trades or whatever in LA, but he was mostly a special teams guy. Now, we've seen these special teams guys, turn out to be special in other places, Landman being one of those this year. Last year it was the kid up, Zach Bond, up in Philly, even though he was a high draft pick. He just kind of didn't pan out with New Orleans. The point is that you can find diamonds in the rough. And Christian Roseman played well. Don't get me wrong, right? But I do think that is a testament to what Ejiro Evero was able to do. Mike Jackson playing well is a testament to Ejiro Evero, right? But it's not like they went and got the best of the best, right? The Turk Wharton signing, which was the biggest, acquisition as far as the money was concerned, was a letdown in my opinion, And that's no disrespect to Turk, but it was, right?
Said, excuse me, when you were first brought in this role, how it was your dream to see the stadium with fans waving towels as you'd seen as a player in 03. With what you saw Saturday, what does that tell you about where you are at this point versus where you thought the team would be right now?
I think it definitely tells us that we're on the right path. Again, though, just to hit on that a little more, but that atmosphere was unbelievable.
It was. I've said that, man. I didn't get a chance to go to the game, dealing with health issues, pre-existing conditions, all that kind of stuff. Hopefully that won't be the case moving forward because I do want to be in attendance, for some of these games going into next year. Schedule's going to be a lot tougher, even though I feel like they're going to be a much better team than they had even this year. But, man, what an electric environment. The energy was just bleeding through the screen. Like, it was unbelievable.
I was here in 2003, 2004 when we played the Cowboys in that playoff game, and I've never seen the crowd like that. So, again, that was unbelievable and really a credit to them. For showing up and showing out and, supporting our team. So, yeah, it's definitely what I envisioned when I took this job. But I see even bigger things moving forward to where this is going to be a consistent thing and not just a flash in the pan.
I like that. I think that's one of the most important points that he made in this entire presser. This is not going to be a flash in the pan. What does that mean? We're back to being aggressive. There's some moves that I think you can make personally, things that I see happening that will look a lot different than they would have looked in previous years, right? And here's the thing. You've got a lot of, with having so much influx in coaching, that's going to give a team like Carolina that has some stability, that's going to allow some big-time free agents to kind of look in the direction of Carolina maybe when they wouldn't have before. It's also going to lend to you the ability to be able to negotiate with some of these guys where the deal doesn't have to break the bank as it would before. We've had to overpay guys because of, hey, it's Carolina. Like, really? You want me to go where? Okay, but here's what I need. It's like, all right. And you're not getting the top tier guys. Again, no disrespect to Turk Wharton, but to step down from Milton to Turk as a consolation prize. And look, some of us was bought in. I really didn't know a lot about Turk. I knew a lot about Milton because, playing him. But, and obviously we played Turk too, no doubt. But, like, he wasn't the guy on that defensive line, right? So it was different. This time I think it'll be a lot different for us. Big names out there, guys that you could maybe even trade for. I'm interested to see the Max Crosby situation and how that looks. Like, I think a lot of the issues, especially on defense, and I know someone was talking about, I seen in the chat, and I'm not sure who it was that commented this, but somebody had mentioned like staying pat at 19 and not really moving up. I wouldn't be mad at that because I think that a lot of what they're going to do from a defensive perspective, I don't think they're going to completely sell where it's like, hey, we betting the farm now because we believe that, this is our window. But I also do think at the same time, like the days of like just kind of sitting back and allowing whatever's going to happen and, kind of being passive aggressive, that's over. I think they're going to be really aggressive. So it wouldn't surprise me to see names like, Max Crosby or, the Chenault guy from, the linebacker or Nakobe Dean, in free agency. Some of these guys that might require big contracts, even though I personally, look, I like Nakobe Dean a lot. I do. But if I had my pick at linebacker, I probably would go Devin Lloyd, right? But again, these names are going to cost money. So it'll be interesting to see how they choose to handle it.
And there were maybe some questions about Bryce, even though he finished last season, on a high note.
Yeah.
But still, this was a big year for him. What did you see out of him, and do you feel like he's like the franchise?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely just to hit on Bryce. We're going to pick up his fifth-year option.
Hey, can I do something real quick? You heard what he said. If you're a fan of the show, if you've been around for a minute, you already know what time it is. I very rarely do this, but I'm going to do it myself. Pat on the back. Yeah, pat on the back. I know it's loud. I know the applause was very, very loud, but it needed to be loud because who told you first? We had said it to the chagrin of, I might have said a word, that's a Stephen A word, but we said it on this show a while ago that they were going to pick up this fifth-year option a while ago before some of these big games. Why? Because what other direction are you going to go, right? They were going to do it. It was kind of obvious, but still, I'm patting myself on the back. Okay, what y'all talking about? Shout out to y'all in the chat, man. We appreciate y'all joining me this morning. We got 148 watching between two platforms. We don't got 19 likes, 159 watching between two platforms, 20 likes. Really? It's free. Hit the button. We appreciate y'all, man. Joining me right now, the Prince of Watauga County, the greatest Appalachian mountaineer to ever exist. Y'all give it up for my man, Invisible Brad. Invisible Brad. What's good with you, brother?
Discovering how links can be temperamental. Got me like 5 minutes to get up in the show. I was like, come on, man.
Hey.
My email hit me with the 7-point authentication. I was like, listen. Just get me in there so I can do some damage. What's good with you, brother?
Straight like that. Man, just going over some of this craziness, man. Now, we are covering the Dan Morgan press conference right now, but I kind of want to back up a little bit just because we did have some breaking news, man. Sean McDermott, very well-known Carolina Panther, former Carolina Panther coach, was fired this morning, Brad. And I got thoughts, and I'm going to go over those thoughts with you, but I want to hear what you think, man. Sean McDermott fired. Give it to me. Pause.
Well, first off, how the chickens come home to roost. I would like to say, get some McDermott, just for the simple reason of the report that came out a few years ago of how during the 2015 season, one of the greatest seasons in Carolina history, one of the greatest seasons by a quarterback on the ground and through the air by one Cameron Jarrell Newton. This man, halfway through the season, bust into the coaches meeting, and is like, Cam Newton is ruining this team. Cam Newton is ruining the team. And to this day, I've heard several, podcasters, Bomani Jones being one of them, to be like, what was his issue? And what was he even talking about? Like, we wouldn't even had any semblance of the season that we had if it wouldn't have been for Cam Newton. And you come in saying he's ruining the team. I think that kind of stuff permeates through a lot of that brother's just the kind of narrative surrounding him, wasn't good teammate. It was all about me. I remember when he got to New England and one of the McCourty brothers saying, I thought Cam was all about me. I thought he was just a flash guy. And he was like, I've learned in the short time he's been here, there's not one person in this building that doesn't have a personal relationship with Cam Newton. And this is not like just to defend Cam type of thing, but when you're that kind of coach that can't, blatantly see the reason, one of the largest reasons for your success on the team, and a guy who, like I said, the NFC Championship, Cam had on Under Armour cleats that had everybody's name on the team but his. Not a me first guy. Like we were talking about this last night. And then second of all, you're basically treating your quarterback like they treated Cam Newton. You got him zero help outside of a Stephon Diggs, here and there. The Cook kid is really good. We had a good running back, but our receiver room, we just swung and a miss several times. Ended up with, like Funchess and those kind of guys. And Allen has a very depleted, very, pedestrian receiving core. They're running him to death. They're trying to get him to make every play. They're basically trying to make him Superman. And this is the longest tenure of a coach and a quarterback to not experience any postseason success. So that's what I feel about it.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a different take. I love when you talked about chickens come home to roost. Like, because I didn't know those things about Sean McDermott. I think you had mentioned that to me one time before in passing or whatever, but it wasn't something that just kind of stuck where I was like, man, I forgot all about this. But my thing was, one, you talked about Cam, and to me, Brandon Beane, I think, plays as big a role as anybody, probably a bigger role in what Josh didn't have, whatever. They did have Diggs at one point. Yeah. Obviously they got Curtis Samuel. It's not as if they didn't have, Matt Collins. they've had guys, right? So now some of these guys hadn't necessarily worked out, but also, I mean, 4 turnovers by him, 5 total, but 2 fumbles and 2 picks. That's not winning many people games, right? And that's not something when you look throughout the playoffs with Cam Newton, not short of that playoff game against San Francisco, that's just not something consistent with Cam Newton, period. You know what I'm saying? Especially after that year. Because, you know, in the Arizona game, obviously you saw what happened. Fast forward to that, Seattle game. I mean, we were a 7-8-1 team. There wasn't a whole lot to expect, especially because we, kind of fell off defensively. They lost Smitty, so, and then that next season, 15-1. He just hasn't had even that 15-1 style season yet, where it was just like absolute dominance outside of when this is really where I think a lot of the prowess for Josh Allen lies. That duel between him and Patrick Mahomes, where they were going back and forth in overtime, it was a movie. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to take anything away from what he was able to do that year. But short of that, it's been a lot of like left to be desired stuff. And I think that they believe that they're not maximizing Josh's potential, and that maybe in a coaching cycle where you've got some names out there like Brian Daboll, Mike McDaniel, and others, it's like, what would happen if we bring in someone else that, from an offensive perspective, that can help him out maybe from the head coaching spot? And that's what I think. So all that said, Josh Allen's performance pretty much got him hacked.
I mean, you can look at it that way. He didn't play the best, but I mean, one of those reasons is because he's trying to put everything on his back. And like we discussed last night, he is no Cam Newton. So, you know what I mean? Like when you put all that on your back, man, I mean, you can't be fumbling and you can't be throwing picks. I mean, everything relies on you. And when you don't have a good supporting cast outside of your running back, that kind of stuff's going to happen. I mean, you're going to press, you're going to try to make plays that aren't there because in the back of your head, you're thinking like how many opportunities we're going to get to win the game.
Yeah.
And he's just, when you press like that, the fumbling, you wouldn't think it's such a commonality. But with his size and, strength and all that kind of stuff, you would think that he wouldn't fumble as much. But like I said, when you're just trying to press and make a lot of things happen, you're holding the ball too long, you're running with it. You're trying to, the kid does got a howitzer for an arm. So, he's going to try that Brett Favre stuff of throwing it through a brick wall. And, hey, some DBs got hands. You know what I mean? They say they play DB and not receiver because they can't catch. Some of them boys out there got some hands.
They do, absolutely. And, somebody said Bill Belichick leaving UNC for the Bills. I've seen that floating around today a lot, actually. So that'll be fascinating to see what happens with that. But I honestly, I don't care. But back to the Panther stuff, man. But and real quick before we go back to Dan Morgan's presser, he did in the beginning of the presser talk about Evero and them kind of locking his deal up and his extension, with Dan or whatever to kind of let them grow together. But he's been interviewed quite a few times. I think after this firing, it's safe to say I'm gonna go out on the limb and say 95% he's getting a job. Like one of these places is gonna hire him. He's been interviewed twice by Pittsburgh. He's been interviewed by the Raiders, if I'm not mistaken. He's been interviewed going to be interviewed by the Dolphins. Like he's getting a job this cycle. So my question to you is, where would you like to see the team go to fill that spot?
I would, if we're going to stick with the 3-4, I would see if I could poach someone from the Texans staff. See if they've got a linebackers coach, D-line coach, defensive backs coach, passing game coordinator, something like that on defense that's really heavy with the scheming, who has some experience. They're, an entire defensive staff that coached with Mike Tomlin this year that's going to be available. So I would look at one of those two places. If we're going to sit with the 3-4, if we're going to go to the 4-3, there are a lot more options.
Yeah. I'm interested to see how they handle it. But I like I said, I'm fully convinced that he's going to get a job. There's just way too many. I mean, I don't know that we've ever seen this before. Like, this is probably the biggest turnover of NFL coaching at one time that I can remember in recent memory, especially with McDermott getting fired.
And what's crazy? Yeah. I'm saying, oh yeah, and my bad. And the thing is, it's at a time where this is not like, I mean, most guys, even if the defensive coaches, especially these offensive coaches, they want to start off with a new quarterback. And this is not a good year in the draft that's going to have game-changing quarterbacks. I mean, people that are still kind of like jury's out on Mendoza. Your boy Diego, he's 5'6", you know what I mean? And Ole Miss quarterback's coming back. You know, Lenore Sellers is in the transfer portal. I don't know, depending on tomorrow, Carson Beck's stock may rise. So it just and some of these places do, you know, you have your quarterback already, and the Raiders do not. But you know what I mean? Like, you're not going to want a quarterback if you're going to Buffalo. You do want a quarterback if you're going to Atlanta. You do want a quarterback if you go to Pittsburgh. You do want a quarterback if you go to Miami. So it's as far as, you know, stepping in, starting your program over, it's not going to be a splash quarterback draft to do that. And the free agent pool is, you know, nothing to get excited about. I mean, how many times can you sell, or, you know, how many GMs have sold Gardner Minshew to their fan base? So
yeah. That being said, we're gonna listen into a little bit of Dan Morgan's press conference because he was talking about that very thing that you just mentioned about quarterback.
You know, I think Bryce has shown, you know, flashes of greatness this year against high-level competition. You know, I think just as a team, we weren't as consistent as we wanted to be on a game-to-game basis. But I think that's part of what happens when you have a young team. You have a young team that's building continuity and, you know, kind of figuring themselves out. So I think Bryce did a great job this year, and just really excited about moving forward and him still developing chemistry with our receivers and just the pieces around him that we had.
What did you see like that?
So we data capping like crazy, which is okay because I got all my youngins in the house, so they using up all the internet. Anyway, but that being said, he talked about the Bryce fifth-year option. I gave us the round of applause because we called the fifth-year option weeks ago when people were still saying, like, nah, I don't think it should happen, right? We called that weeks ago, and it happened. I think that Bryce is without question the future, because if he's not, what are your options? Now, if you want to argue the next year's draft, you got quite a few names to choose from. Quite a few. Whether it's Arch Manning, whether it's DJ Lagway, if you believe in him, or you mentioned Lenora Sellers, or Nico Imaliava. I mean, there's a sea of names that you could develop into, you know, pretty solid quarterbacks. And not for nothing, I think Mendoza's the real deal. I think the true mark of a quarterback is two things. Number one, you know, especially a young quarterback, how do you react to the blitz? Well, I can tell you with Fernando Mendoza, he's got a 91% completion percentage against the blitz. So that's a huge thing. Two, are you willing to move? Absolutely. If the plays break down and nothing is there, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get a first down, even if that means using my legs and putting my body on the line. That's a huge thing, and Mendoza does a lot of both. So I think he's going to be all right. Now, the question is can the Raiders, because it's more than likely the fact that they're going to take him, right? Can the Raiders build around him good enough? Who do they hire as a head coach, you know, to make him, you know, to maximize his potential? If it were me, like if you're looking at a guy like Evero, for example, because he has, somebody even said in the chat that he has interviewed with the Raiders twice, I wouldn't be afraid to bring in an Evero because I would look at, you know, like what Seattle's doing, right? And just build a monster, or D'Amico in Houston, a monster of a defense, and insulate your quarterback with a good running game. You know, build the trenches first. You know, draft a bunch of offensive linemen, draft some defensive linemen, get some free agents in there, and try to build a wall on both sides so that your skill position guys that you like, who you drafted last year in Ashton Genty, can actually show what he can be in the league and not just get blown up every play. But that being said, there's not a lot of free agent pool to pull from, this year. And I want to transition to something else because I think that this has been a huge conversation going on online since last night. You and I touched on it a little bit, but we didn't really dive into it too deep. But let me ask you a question. Let's revisit this Bryce Young and CJ Stroud conversation, man. Do you feel like, based on what you saw not just last night, the previous playoff game as well, and I think let me just lay some context first. CJ Stroud has made the playoffs every year as a starter. That needs to be said. He's won multiple playoff games. That also needs to be said. So it is something to be said for you losing in the divisional round. It's not like you getting bounced in the wild card or going in as a 1 seed and getting bounced in the divisional, right? However, there has been regression since that first season, as highlighted by Troy Aikman in this clip. And I'm going to play this, and I want to hear from you, Brad.
I will say this, Joe. D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio, they've got some tough decisions they've got to make about this team on the offensive side of the ball. They replaced Bobby Slowick last year after his 2 years as the offensive coordinator. CJ Stroud has been chasing his rookie success for the last 2 years. He's not been the same player. We've not seen the development from him. There's a reason for that, and it has to be addressed.
Here's Bryant, passes too high and off his hands. It's 4th down. Yeah, you bring up a great point. I mean, his rookie year was as good a rookie year as you can have in the NFL in 2023. But the last 2 years have been okay, not great. And here tonight, now if his hands hurt, that's one thing. But he missed some open throws here tonight, turned the ball over a lot again, which is what he did in Pittsburgh. This was not a good performance.
Well,
Brad, he looked lost, man. It looked like confidence shaken. He just looked completely lost last night. That being said, if you're a Panther fan, because of all that we heard after that rookie season and seeing Bryce win 2 games, because of him going to the playoffs and us watching Bryce get benched in his second year, do you somewhat feel vindicated? Because that's a lot of the conversation going on online right now.
Well, I feel like, one, they have not addressed offensive line. Their offensive line is porous. A lot of people were very, very angry with Dan Morgan for going out and spending the kind of money he spent on Damian Lewis and Big Rob, you know what I mean? And they were just like, man, dang, we got $100 million tied up in guards. But our quarterback has got to throw from a clean pocket quite a bit. Our running game has been average to, above average at times. All of his receivers are hurt. They didn't have Nico Collins. Then their tight end got hurt. Then their backup tight end got hurt. Then we haven't seen Tank Dell. I don't remember the last time I saw that kid play. And then they changed his offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
So it's, I said yesterday, when I first texted you, I was like, man, the defense has been carrying CJ and the offense like Sherpas on, Everest expeditions. You know what I mean? Like, they've been carrying them. But it's a thing you got to, say, just like we're talking about. I mean, what are your other options? You're too good. They're like in the Pittsburgh no man's land where they're consistently, because they're making the playoffs, they're picking between 19 and 24.
Yeah.
And the kid did have a good rookie season, and there are extraneous factors like changing OC. And we talked about it when the Steelers switched to Haley. I mean, that first year, him and Big Ben, there were 5 or 6 games at the first of that year where they didn't reach 225 yards passing. You know what I mean? So like that kind of switch, those kinds of changes in, personnel and coordination, that kind of stuff matters. And at the crux of it, you were talking earlier about, the Raiders building like such a tough defense and offense. Dude, I would say it's 85-15.
Mm-hmm.
How much of the resources they've put on defense compared to offense. And it shows because their defense is, otherworldly, but they have no weapons. They have no offensive line. Their running back position is, laughable outside of aging Nick Chubb. I feel like they're kind of in the same boat. Now, said all that to say, as far as vindication, this really has no merit on my vindication of if Bryce is playing well, Bryce is the future with us. I just know that it shuts down the conversation of we should have drafted Stroud.
Well, okay, so I'll let you
know
do
what I
that.
mean?
That'll be your take. I'm going to tell you because I'm queuing it up. I feel vindicated because I have been a content creator since 2021, and I had to deal with all you bozos that was in my comments telling me about Stroud and Richardson and all these other people, and look who's standing on the mountaintop now. The kid who hardly ever gets hurt, the kid who got benched. Tell me if your man could have handled that after throwing 4 picks in a game. 4 picks. Could have threw more than that. Could have threw way more than that. I have often argued that if he was here, the situation would have not only looked the same, it probably would have looked worse. Why? Because the boy don't move, Brad. We talked about that last night. If the defense is playing too high coverage and everybody's locked up, run. There was a few times where he had those opportunities to run, and he didn't.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So to be able to move around, you telling me a kid that got sacked 62 times. Now, Bryce Young, that was the scouting report. When they were both, I know this well, because during this time, during 2023, that's all we talked about. That is all we talked about on this channel because that was the most important thing. We moved up. I remember exactly where I was when I got the notification when I was at work that we were trading DJ Moore to move up. And I remember saying on the show, this might have been maybe 2 weeks prior. I had said on one of my shows like, hey, or not, because I wasn't really doing live shows back then like that. It was a video clip that I put out. And I was like, man, I really believe that they could trade DJ Moore. Like, DJ Moore could be in a trade to get up to the first overall pick. Because I think Chicago wants out of that pick. I don't think they're going to take a quarterback this cycle, right? And, man, I had people just screaming at me, man, you out your mind. Ain't nobody going to trade DJ. And then as soon as it hit, Twitter start popping. Hey, man, bruh, I'm sorry. My bad. I'm like, it's not that I was trying to be the oracle in this. It's just when you looking at it from a realistic perspective, they had the opportunity to trade Burns for 2 firsts. We talked about that last night. Who knows if that was actually set in stone or if it's just one of those tongue-in-cheek things that was out there. But regardless, it was out there, right? It wasn't just them either. Baltimore was also on the table. That's something else we didn't talk about last night. Baltimore was a team that was interested in Brian Burns. Who knows what they were offering, but the 2 first-round picks were the ones coming from the Rams, and they didn't pull the trigger. All right? Well, then who are they going to trade? Because if you're not going to trade 2 first-round picks for this guy, then clearly you're going to trade somebody and somebody of note to be able to, go somewhere else and package up to get up to number 1. And they traded DJ. So we were only talking hypotheticals. When you look at across our roster, who would somebody else want? Oh, DJ. Yeah, why not? You know what I'm saying? And so DJ goes up to Chicago. That whole offseason, all we did was evals. All I did was look at every person that does draft evals and what they saw in CJ Stroud and what they saw in Bryce Young. And there were 2 things that I saw that were continuous. Number 1, Bryce Young was really good against the blitz. And number 2, he would move. There were 2 things that I saw about CJ Stroud that were continuous. Number 1, CJ Stroud was horrible against the blitz. And number 2, he doesn't move. He doesn't like to run. And then he put that to bed in the playoff game against Georgia, where he was moving around, throwing the ball on the run, stuff like that. And people are like, oh, okay, yeah, he can do that. But yesterday we saw he doesn't do that. Now, all those things that you mentioned, all those other factors, they matter. Losing Nico Collins matters. Having a bad offensive line matters. Having no running game matters. No doubt. But skipping passes at people's feet, throwing the ball, 2 or 3 yards over someone's head, all that kind of stuff, man, that's mental, dog, because you had open opportunities. And these guys were just getting missed like crazy. Brad, the boy could have threw 7 interceptions easy. There were a couple of them that were dropped. There were some that people just didn't make plays on the ball. It was bad. And I'm like, and it ain't just this. It was this last week. Pittsburgh just couldn't close the deal on some of this stuff, but it was the same thing last week. It's been the same thing through the season. Like, we even looked through the season at the regression. The stats through the season, 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. You know what I'm saying? 65% completion percentage, no doubt. But the sack rate around the same. But the passing yards, 3,000 passing yards, don't get me wrong. Because if you look at Bryce's stats, it ain't all that different, right? But the situations couldn't be more different. That was my argument the whole time. The situations could not be more different. But on a personal level, catching some of the arrows that I caught all these years, yeah, I feel vindicated. Look, it's mad.
Yeah, I feel that.
It's mad people disliking the video. I do not care. Pull up. I don't care. Respond.
Well, I am very happy for you, my brother. I know you were standing alone with your shield and your sword, and you was taking on these massive insurgent armies that were going in on their Bryce takes. And I mean, and even to this day, I mean, you still have a lot of people that just act like he's, terrible. We're never going to be any good. But I mean, I totally get your pick. I totally get your stance, and I get your point of view. I'm just one of those people that I'm not going to move the goalposts if I can. And this is one of them things where he went out there in the snow with nothing and basically looked like he had nothing. We talked earlier about Josh Allen and his turnovers yesterday, and to me, it was just kind of the same thing. You're pressing. I mean, he definitely was holding the ball. He was holding the ball like he had a top 5 offensive line, especially in the pass. I mean, he was holding the ball. I mean, dude, we were talking about, like, Clavon Chason was getting off. You know what I mean? Like, we cut him in the preseason last year, and Clavon was out there looking like Will Anderson. But yeah. I mean, he missed on a lot of throws, man. He did not look good, and I will not. These aren't excuses to say he could have done this with all of his weapons and all that. I'm just pointing those things out because very rarely are they all pointed out. I guess I'll do, as Kobe said, a Bikram yoga stretch, and you start thinking about when LeBron and Carmelo come in the league, and you had fans of both guys, and one guy became the guy, and the other guy was a very good player and an all-star and all that, but the whole thing was he's nowhere near as good. He is a team cancer. He's terrible compared to this other guy, and you basically had the two factions of supporters from both of those different guys. But I mean, I remember listening to JT O'Sullivan on the Mina Kimes show, and he was saying, CJ looked good in that game. CJ's had a really good pro day. He said, but the ball just looks different coming off Bryce's hands, man. Like, he just throws a better ball. And definitely some of that's coming to fruition. I mean, when you consider the misses. So
it's fascinating.
To me, it's not that kind of vindication type thing. But I just joined you this year.
Yeah, you wasn't here.
But yeah, I mean, like I said,
if my boy Keeb was here right now, he would be.
conversation.
Yeah. If Keeb was here right now, he would be popping ish like me because Keeb was here for all of it too.
Word.
You know what I'm saying? So, but I appreciate your feedback. So let me get to these super chats real quick. Shout out to Panthers for Life 9. Panthers for Life 9 said, no, don't give Stroud the excuse. They didn't allow Bryce to have that excuse throwing to Laviska and DJ Chark and 8 play callers a year. 8 play callers year one. Yeah. Nah, I'm with it, man, because it's the truth. Because these arrows wasn't coming from the outside, man. Like, people looked at us, and here's the thing. It was more toxic inside the environment for Bryce than it was on the outside ever, right? It started to get that way a little bit this year because people were looking at the inconsistencies, and then he would come out and do something crazy and shut people up. But, like, for the most part, this was coming from the inside because there was no more polarizing name than C.J. Stroud. And when you were watching the level of success that he was having, it was difficult to watch Bryce and be like, man, but the situations, as I said, they couldn't have been more different. We didn't move up and take the next, what arguably was, some people might say, the best player in the draft. Brad, I told you this, and we revisited it last night. Nick Saban has coached a lot of great defensive players. Pat Surtain, you name them, Marcel Darius. My God, the list goes on and on. He said that Will Anderson was not just the best defensive player, he was the best player he's ever had. Right? And they moved up and drafted that guy, and you saw what he did last night. Him and Danielle Hunter, in some instances, were basically keeping them in this game for the longest time. We didn't come up and take somebody like that. Here's Jadeveon Clowney for you. Oh, appreciate it. Right? Your receivers were DJ Chark, Laviska and all. Remember I told you, Marshawn, Laviska? That's his name for real, cuz? Laviska? Yeah. Where's cuz at now? Nowhere to be found. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, this was a real thing. Let's go to Joe Clarity with his super chat. Shout out to my man Joe Clarity, a regular on the show, friend of the show. Brady did a short saying, too many people judge quarterbacks on physical traits more than the mental traits, emotional traits, and can they grow from failure? Let me tell you, buddy, I love that you just said that because I argued, and I didn't say a lot of this publicly because I knew I would have got murked for it. And I just wasn't in the mental space myself to be able to deal with the arrows. But, buddy, let me tell you something. The tides have changed for me because I've had some takes this year that people have absolutely killed me for. You being one of them, Brad, about Xavier Lee Getz. So I'm ready for it. And here's what I'll tell you. When C.J. Stroud was going on his tour, the podcast tour and all that stuff in the offseason of that rookie year, I remember telling Keeb on the phone, I was like, dog, this boy better come ball out next year because they're going to be on his head. All of that is coming home to roost. Because in that second year when he didn't play as well, but it was still like, it's pretty good, it was like nobody really said anything. All the culmination of all that stuff, because that's all that's coming up today. That's all you seeing. People pulling clips of him talking about him being top 5. You know what I'm saying? People pulling clips of him talking to Caleb like, hey, dog, learn from it. And all this kind of stuff. And all these other places that he was popping up in, or the Michael, what's the name party, the Rubin party, the white party where he out there chilling or whatever like that. All that stuff is coming up. Is it fair? No, it's not fair because he should be able to live his life. But it's the reality. It is the reality. If you're going to be outside like that, the performance got to match. Why you think people like Tom Brady stayed to himself so much? Even Cam stayed to himself. Cam wasn't outside like that. All the stuff that we saw from Cam as far as like his, the big personality and all that kind of stuff, man, that was on the field. Off the field, why you think Cam popping his ish now? Talking about the kadoosh and all the other kind of stuff. Because he know what it take. And he know you need to be quiet. Because if you don't, this is what's going to happen. And I hate seeing this happen to this kid today. But you knew it was coming. And it sucks for him. It really does. Because I think C.J. Stroud's a really good kid. But I also think at the same time, a lot of these things is chickens coming home to roost. I got one more super chat to read. And it actually says nothing. It's him adding somebody else or adding himself. So salute to yourself. But
salute to the fire.
Yeah. To go back to that point that Joe Clarity made about, the emotional and self-aware EQ, IQ. I don't think that there's anybody more self-aware than C.J. Stroud. I don't think that that's something that he struggles with in that department. I will say this, though. To be an NFL quarterback, it does take a different level. I think CJ sometimes, and this is going to go a little bit deeper than maybe a lot of y'all might want to go, but I'll go here because of some stuff that I follow that I've seen. I saw an interview of CJ Stroud on CBN. Actually, he wasn't interviewed. He was just talked about. They were talking about his press conference. And, one thing CJ Stroud has talked about ad nauseum is his language. Like, he's like, man, I really struggle because as a believer, it's hard for me to have this dichotomy that exists because I play this sport where, we get really energized, we get really hyped up, and sometimes we can say things that we might not necessarily mean to say as believers, right? I do that on this show sometimes. I have to really catch myself because the things that I really want to say to really get this thing popping, here's the reality, Brad. If I really talk like my heart, my flesh would allow me to talk sometimes, we'd be out of here, bro. We would be out of here. But I'm content with where this show is because I know that there's some places I'm just not willing to go. And sometimes I really kind of bend a little bit more than I probably want to and should, right? That being said, it does cause a little bit of hindrance on the overall performance of the show, if I'm just being honest. Because we know doing this kind of stuff, man, the drama is, hey, look, drama can be, it's fun to talk about, right? We all messy. The Bible says the heart is above all things wicked, right? I think it's difficult for some guys to be able to tone that down and still keep that competitive edge. I'm not saying that that's what CJ is struggling with at all. I'm not saying that at all. What I will say, though, is that I just do find fascinating, like, he just does not look like the same guy. And it just feels like usually when this kind of stuff happens, you can point to something that suggests, oh, that's the reason. And maybe it is Bobby Slowick. Now, there was a story out there that's been floating around, and I don't know that there's a lot of truth to this, but whether it was a pre-draft situation or something that happened while he was already, at the franchise, apparently him and Bobby Slowick had like a difference of opinion about something from an install. Like he was telling him like, hey, this is this play, blah, 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 whatever. And he's like, well, we do this at Ohio State. And then they get up and start, arguing with each other. And there's a lot of like people, if I see this on certain pages, I'm like, yeah, that ain't real. But I'm seeing it on pages of people that I know have credibility. So there was something there. Now, I'm not saying that's the reason that Bobby left because, Bobby got fired, right? But I do find it interesting, like, maybe there's something there with, like, his willingness to do certain things, learn certain things, because if you were having all this success with Bobby, why would he have to be fired? You see what I'm saying? Like, in your regression. It seems like y'all could be able to retool and find the magic that you found that first year. But I don't know. Man.
Well, I mean, this kind of stuff happens all the time. I just, I know the speculation, all those things could have mattered. I mean, we've seen, like, we've moved on from coaches because they didn't, we talked about it last night. I mean, Frank Wright basically he didn't come out explicitly say it, but, he has a mouthpiece of Boomer, who came out and basically was like, he didn't want Bryce. And we seen how that season was going. Like, the offense didn't mesh with his skill set. He did. He wanted the kind of statue to stand back there and just sling it down the field. That kind of old school. I mean, Frank's from, the mid-90s. And in the end, they pulled the trigger quick, after week 6, week 7, and got him up out the paint. And that was why. Like, clearly, he didn't want Bryce. The insider guys, the special teams coach that was reporting back to Tepper was like, hey, man, your quarterback is being hindered by this coach. It's an issue. He's not really, giving 110%, and they got him up out the paint. So, I mean, that could have been the same thing there. It just, we'll never know because that kind of stuff, doesn't come out of word. Maybe we're just not searching as much as we did for the issues with Bryce and with, Frank Wright having to move on real quick. But yeah, man, like sometimes those decisions got to be made on the fly. They got to be made quick, and you feel like you can get better. It's just like the Sean McDermott situation. I mean, they've been to the playoffs. He hasn't had a losing season, but they're like, we can get better than this. We can, bring someone in. It just hasn't worked out that way. And
yeah,
again, people can say it's excuses, but I'll say with no offensive line and the top 4 people on your receiving core missing, it looks like this, especially against a well-coached defense in the playoffs. And he played 2 well-coached defenses. So,
yeah, good point. Elaine Foster said C.J. Stroud had 3 weeks in the concussion protocol, so maybe that plays a factor into what we've seen this year as well. But or at the end of this year, I should say. So who knows? And then I did see a funny comment. Hold on, I'm gonna go back to it real quick. Where you at? Oh, here you go. My man King Jiminix, 4852 Jiminix. Said, what did Doug Flutie accomplish in the league? Little man ain't bring no championships to the Carolinas, and Flutie arm was stronger. All right. We'll see. A lot remains to be seen. I'll just say that. But here's what I do know about little man.
Well,
go ahead.
And I do like him much, not just because he's our quarterback, is much, much better than Kyler Murray, who is a guy of similar stature who's got a rocket.
Yeah, very similar. They couldn't, and people try to compare them. They could not be more different in every single way. Bryce Young is very quiet, very reserved, very much like, a nerd when it comes to the quarterback position. Kyler Murray, if you got to have clauses in your contract that's like, hey, we need you to study at least 2 hours of film per day, that's a problem, right? But here's what I'll tell you, Mr. King Jiminix, and salute to you for showing up. Look sharp in the profile photo, by the way. But I'll tell you this, you and everybody else who is I guess, if you're going to say something like this, my guess is that you probably be anti-Bryce. And that's cool. That's very cool. But you're going to have to hold it. Why? Because that 5th-year option is signed, homeboy. Yeah, hold that. Anyway, moving right along. So look, man, we got to get into this. So the playoffs, Brad, I didn't really have a whole lot to talk about when it came to Panther stuff. That press conference, I thought, and we'll talk a little bit about draft stuff, towards the end of this. The Panthers press conference, man, that joint was 37 minutes long with Dan Morgan. I'm not going through all that. We'll break some of that down maybe later in the week with individual videos, but I want to talk about these playoffs, dog. If this is the exit door for some of y'all, then cool, but we'll talk about it how it pertains to the Panthers in some degree. I know what you meant, Elaine. I got you, man. Anyway, so I got to play this first, man. Let's start here.
Let my teammates down tonight.
Your emotion normally aren't this emotional for us. Is what has brought this on?
Just missed opportunities throughout the game. It's been a long season. I hate how it ended, and it's going to stick with me for a long time.
We go to prison.
Yes, I'm laughing at Bill's tears this morning. Why? Not just because it's Josh Allen, because it's this guy. You remember how I told you that my flesh struggles not to say certain things? I'm gonna allow the spirit to take over, and I'm not gonna let my flesh say what I really, really want to say. Right? Plus my internet is capping anyway, so I can't really. It wouldn't come off as great. But let's not forget.
Yeah, you gonna look at him and be like, "This ain't the WWE. This ain't UFC."
That boy say fight you after the game, crazy.
What is that? They'll run their mouth, and then once they get there, then it's like, all right, see me after the game. I'm like,
you must was dumping, bro, out there.
It was 40-9. Emotions are high, right? Emotions are high. You can see him. Like I'm helping yo tackle with tips on how to play tackle, and you coming up and talking crazy in my face, like, bro, listen, bro, how you gonna walk up to somebody with the mindset like, oh, I'm finna fight this dude, and then walk up to my face and say anything? why are you saying anything to me? At that point, you should be reacting, right? Like what are you doing? But
Nah, facts.
whatever,
I
bro.
feel you. I feel you. Nah, for sure.
It's just weird. All these tough guys that want to be tough, just come meet and spar. I be doing UFC. I be mixed martial arts fighting. I be wrestling. We do so much stuff. Boxing in the off season. Max also does mixed martial arts and he be boxing in the off season. I'm like, yo, Max, we should spar in the off season just to and play around, like spar and see what's up. Max says, yes, let's do it. Let's have a good time. Let's put the hands, put the headgear on. I done got Sugar Shane O'Malley, Maz Vidal, Dana is coming up here this week. Hopefully, maybe like we can get some stuff done. I be feeling like all these tough guys that want to be tough, just come meet and spar. Anybody could put gloves and headgear on. One, it's a workout. Like you're gonna sweat.
Hey, my nigga, you gonna have all the time in the world to spar. Go have fun, bro. 1, 2, 3 Cancun. You right there with us. Salute. 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 Hey, look. The last person on earth that should be calling somebody corny. But, you know, go off. I love it, man. These moments come full circle, bro. They come full circle. Full circle. Because how you feeling this morning? You got your man bounced. You got to be feeling great. I know it's bad. I know. I get it. I get it, Willie. I get it. Who was it last time? I can't remember my man's name that told me we shouldn't be dancing on people's graves.
Oh, yeah.
We go to prison.
I'm dancing all over. Chump.
If we're gonna dance on Michael Penix with his super bad Carfax report, hey, definitely cranking that Soldier Boy on this ninja.
Cranking it. All right, to the games though. Man, I'll tell you, the playoff. I love the playoffs, man. Especially when the games are close. Especially when you get so much parity, man. There were so many different storylines, bro. It was fun. It was a fun weekend to watch. You know, nothing was, just absolutely out of the, other than the San Francisco and Seattle game. But, man, outside of that, everything was a blast, Again, with Josh Allen, it's like, if not now, when? You got a lot of guys coming back next year. You got a lot of teams that are going to be retooling. You got a lot of coaches that are going to be in different places. Now that y'all fired y'all coach, and that's the thing, Brad, unless you got some kind of visionary mindset and you're going to do something, yeah, sure, you might bring in, here's how this really could go for the Bills. There's going to be a lot of people in that locker room upset that McDermott got fired on the defensive side of the ball. A lot of people. Right? That being said, if you bring in some offensive guru guy, your defense could literally fall off a cliff. If that happens, Josh Allen might have a Deshaun Watson style season the year before he got, his whole situation, all that broke down for him in Houston, and you win 4 games. That division ain't getting no easier at all. Who knows what Miami's going to do? New York's got a couple of picks, even though I think it's going to be a minute before they, climb the mountain again. That's going to be a tough walk for y'all. So I see why these guys were so emotional, because there ain't no guarantee of get back in this situation. Not at all.
Yeah, well, I can't really agree with comparing him to the nasty man, because that brother nasty. And, he was doing nasty things, and so.
Whoa. Hold on.
I'm talking about Deshaun Watson.
No. I ain't. No, you good. You good with what you just said. You good with what you just said. I want to react to something that I just saw your best friend Fayed Nam say in the chat. Because if this is true, he says, have y'all saw XL stunting in the new Glorilla Pooh Shiesty video? No wonder why he can't focus on catching the football. Now, I'm one of those people that believes that you are fully capable of being able to go enjoy your life and do what you want to do. Also, as somebody, I haven't told this story before, but my background before joining YouTube was being a videographer in the music industry, right? So I've done that. So I know what those schedules can look like. That video could have been shot when they shot the other video last summer. That record could have been recorded a long time ago and they just now put it out. In this climate of music, though, I highly doubt it, especially when you look at Pooh Shiesty and when he was released and all that other kind of stuff. So this appears to be something that's been more recent, right? My question for Brad, if that's true, you tell me how you feel.
I feel like we're getting to the point where we're sort of getting on the old man get off my lawn type stuff at this point. We act like we're not in a digital world where people are not on the internet every day doing all kinds of nonsense. I mean, we're on YouTube right now. It's a world led by podcasts. It's a world that's led by just being seen, you know what I mean? Nothing. I got nothing more than that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, these kids want to be seen. They want to be talked about. And he's in a video with a girl he pseudo might have dated. I guess right now, I mean, this, especially if it was shot recently, this is the immediate time where they have 3 weeks or so, or 4 weeks while they go do their own thing. And then in the spring, they get back together with their quarterbacks or with their coaches or whatever. The guy's not going to go out right now and be catching passes. Like, that's just asinine. And it's asinine to be like, oh, man, he was in a video. No wonder he can't, look at all the stuff we do where it has no bearing on our jobs. The guy still worked last summer, but he should have been working with Bryce. And I'll give you that. He should have been working with Bryce. And who knows if he wasn't, instead of working with Route God, which, we talked about that with Cam saying, hey, man, like all that stuff you're doing has very little to do with getting out on the route and getting it done. But this is what these kids do. Now, there is a part of me, I think about, you remember when T.O. and Hank Baskett both were on reality TV shows at the same time? Mm-hmm. And on T.O.'s show, T.O. was working out. And on the Playboy Kendra show, Hank Baskett was on there chilling. Mm-hmm. And then that next year, he, doesn't field a kickoff and they end up losing the Super Bowl. So that was funny. I mean, I can see where Vietnam's coming from in like a small, like I said, old man, get off my lawn type thing. These young boys need to be working, but we are insane to think that these dudes are not taking time off to do other things in the off season. Everybody does it. Bryce said he was chilling, watching Netflix all summer. Should he have been out throwing? Was he not out throwing? So again, great to point it out. Good point to be like, it's a gotcha moment, but all of these kids, especially these kids under 25, well, they're men, they're not kids, but 25, these young guys, man, they're all doing podcasts. They're all doing YouTube stuff. There's just a few of them that don't. And if it would make you feel better if you did not see Xavier Legette doing anything on social media or doing anything as far as being seen until the season comes back and he has a 1,000-yard receiving season, then hey, more power to you.
Nah, not this time. Nah, not this time.
Shout out to my boy Invisible Brad. Kelvin Eclectic just said, I don't know if we just got Centelled or not, but he said, I just went back and watched the Pooh Shiesty and Glow video, never saw Leggett. I don't know what's true.
Oh.
I'll say this. As I said, don't know if it's true, don't know if it's not.
I better not see one horse. Oh, my bad.
You could.
He said, I better not see one damn horse. Not one squirrel busting down. Until we go to the Super Bowl.
Man, I can't believe Newt did that boy like that, man. Newt, why they ain't got Newt out of here yet, man? We called for it. Get him out of here. Look, I ain't saying it's true or if it's not true. I don't know. I ain't going to look either because I don't want to do that on my show. I ain't trying to be that messy. But I'll say this. If it were true, optics are everything. Okay, go live your life. Live your life, dog. You ain't gonna get no pushback from me. But listen, if it turned out that you clip, we can point back to the optics. That's all I'll say. The optics versus the production.
Well, I mean, people are still. I saw I was telling you about the PFF put out the side-by-side chart with him and T-Mac, and it was saying on catchable balls he had less drops this year than T-Mac. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing, probably like the third comment was, man, whatever, man, he rode a horse to the playoff game. So, yeah, I mean, optics matter. Even though we debunk that,
yeah,
people are still, the first thing they say when they see him is, man, he rode a horse to the playoff game.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. It's all bad. It's all bad. Shout out to I see a couple of my people, my people I've known for quite some time in this space. Panther Pickle and Poppin in the chat. Salute. Poppin having an absolute war that I haven't responded to, just because, like I said, it's Vindication Day, and I love Pop. Pop, my man. But Pop know what time it is with me when it comes to Bryce. I'm vindicated today, so I ain't trying to hear none of that. Like, I appreciate you posting the stats and all that kind of stuff. Go pick your man up. How about that? Anyway, shout out to the chat. Appreciate y'all, man. We got 206 people watching between two platforms, 60 likes, man. 2 dislikes, 4 dislikes, 5 dislikes. Hey, they don't like me today, and I don't care. Smash that like button for your boy. Smash the dislike button for your boy. All that stuff, man. You know, I don't take the dislikes as no offense. I know y'all passionate about your mans and them. But we passionate over here too. I appreciate y'all joining the One Carolina show today. If you want to join the channel membership, $1.99 per month to become a member of the OCs, the original cats. I know it's a lot of new people in here today. Make sure to smash the subscribe button and bell notification so you don't miss when we go live. And we're going to continue. I had mentioned before that I wasn't sure what we were going to do as far as Main Street Mondays for the season, but guess what? As my man Leo say in Wolf of Wall Street, I'm not freaking leaving. So we're going to continue the entire offseason as well.
No.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Some of y'all asked me, and we'll talk about this real quick, when my first mock will be. Likely, I will say next week or the week after. But we'll do some, we always have special guests when it comes to the mocks. That's when Ball Don't Lie will become a thing, more of a staple on the show as well. Some of my good draft friends out there that I like to speak with will be back for round 2 this year. We had a really good one last year with both Real Ball Watcher and also Jared Feinberg of Sports Illustrated, which was really, really good. And then obviously my man What's Up Doug, who I hadn't talked to in some time. So I know Doug just got married recently. I hate to put his business out in the street, but hopefully he's doing well. I'll reach out to him, see how things are going. But yeah, we'll be doing a lot of draft content, collaborations, all that kind of stuff. That's going to be a lot of fun. What do I think about the Stefanski hire? And I will also let Brad answer this as well. I overjoyed about the Stefanski hire. I'm overjoyed. I love it. Right? And it's not like, look, for two reasons. Not just because I think he's going to come in and bomb, which I believe is going to be the reality. It's also because I hope the Falcons get better. I don't want to be in a division where everybody's bad and we all of a sudden become a juggernaut. I don't. I know most people will probably be against that, but you go look at the teams that are in the fight right now and in their divisions. I mean, my gosh, look at Denver's division for the last 6 to 8 years, right? They figured it out and they got over the mountaintop and they fought and clawed and built a roster that would, be able to contend with the likes of Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey and Andy Reid and all that stuff. And here they are. So it ain't always a guarantee that, look, their run has been magical, but that run, for all we know, that run might have come to a close, and it may be a while before they get back to the mountaintop because all these other teams are going to try to get better. The LA Chargers are an 11-win team. You know what I'm saying? Look at the NFC West. Man, the Rams are still in it. Seattle's still in it. San Francisco was in it. Arizona played some teams tough. They beat us. You know what I'm saying? So, nah, I don't want to be in a division where the teams are all terrible. Nope. I'm glad New Orleans is getting better. Why? Because it's going to force Dan Morgan and company to build the best team to do what first? Before we start thinking about, I know we backdoored into the playoffs, right? But I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves because before we do anything else, you got to win the division first. Do not care about what's going on out there and, all the other opponents that we got to play. You got to build towards winning your division first, and then you worry about reaching the mountaintop. So I'm glad that, that's on one side. But then there's another side of it, and this is where I more lean towards. This man is my way or no way, and I think that is going to absolutely blow up in his face unless he makes some wholesale changes with Michael Penix. It is going to absolutely blow up in his face. I fully expect that Kirk Cousins will probably be the starting quarterback for that team for the whole year next year. I don't see a world where Michael Penix comes back. That's just me. I know that sounds crazy, but if you didn't like Shedeur, what are you going to love about Michael Penix? I mean, because it's a lot different. He's, what I'm saying? He's closer to Deshaun than he is to, Joe Flacco from which you came. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, salute to Atlanta. They'll blow something up for real. And then some of those guys that will want to re-sign will be gone, and we'll just watch that whole thing implode and, do like it's been doing for the last, 15 years. So, yeah, that's what I feel about it. You, Brad?
Two things. If he had had that kind of trouble mismanaging that Shedeur situation, I don't know if he really thinks Shedeur in his own mind thinks he's a superstar, but who thinks they're a superstar in their own mind, and that's Michael Penix.
Yeah.
You remember that brother on draft night? He was in there looking like Miami Vice. On some extraneous mission on Grand Theft Auto, like go and get drafted, top 10 when you're not supposed to be on draft night. And two, for him, like, you may not want a sorry division, but I think Gold Member said it best in Awesome Powers, but I do. Stop that laughing. The Patriots built an entire 20-year dynasty on the fact that nobody was trying to compete for 20 years. Nobody.
Yeah, but that's because everybody was chasing them. Yeah, go ahead.
But no. Man, Miami did. It seemed like Miami did not care what they put on the field. The Jets, except for those few years with Rex Ryan, did not seem to care what they put on the field. You know what I'm saying? The Bills tried by taking guys off their team. You remember the year they signed Lawyer Malloy and they stomped the Patriots to go 0-1, and then they ended up still winning the Super Bowl that year.
Mm-hmm.
I am down with us getting 6 free passes every year in a division and hosting home playoff games. Now, you talked about the AFC West, but look at the AFC least. You know what I'm saying? Like Buffalo out. New York, that Aaron Glenn experiment, I don't see how that's not over. I'm glad. I do like brothers to get a chance of more than a year, but like his defensive coordinator, who he so aggressively dismissed after he traded away the best players on the defense, Steve Wilkes, I've seen it where the brothers don't get a chance no matter what is stacked against them. So, shout out to the Jets for giving him, another chance. And then Miami, dude, I mean, Tua, the Brian Flores situation, the Patriots are about to be back on their dynasty stuff. You know what I'm saying? And like, it's because the division is weak. We talked about that last night. I'm just saying, like, yeah, you want people to give the NFC South credit, but all those years, I remember Earl Thomas said it when he played for the Seahawks. He was like, man, if Brady played in our division, there's no way they would have a guaranteed division title every year. And of course, everybody jumped down his throat. Brady's the greatest. Don't ever say anything negative. But it was true. If the Patriots would have had to play in a conference who had San Francisco, Seattle, you know what I'm saying? Like those kind of defenses, especially when they were a little thin, the non-Moss years and when they were bringing up Edelman before Gronkowski became established, they would have struggled in that division. But since they played in the AFC least, they continued to eat and host playoff home games. I mean, the year he got hurt, man, Matt Castle, look what he did. And then look at Matt Castle on all these other teams. I saw him on a podcast the other day talking about how, his last year in Kansas City, the coaches turned off his headset and he was just out there calling plays on the field. Dude, this Stefanski hire, it is going to blow up because, one, look how he's mismanaged the quarterback situation in Cleveland. He's got, one, I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't pay that whole $60 million to Kirk Cousins and had him day one starter. So he didn't have to deal with Penix. Then, Bijan's a great back, man. He's probably one of the, if not the best running back in the NFL, catching out of the backfield running. Man, it's going to be Dave one-step ball, man, which he did with Ricky Williams. 3 yards, a cloud of dust, and then they're going to throw on third down. It's going to be a huge shit sandwich, and everybody from Atlanta is going to have to take a bite. I am glad that's what the case is going to be, and I'll sit over here and worry about the 27-year-old second-year player in New Orleans who carved us up. And if Baker comes back healthy, what they do with Mike Evans. But yeah, man, like I'm not opposed to us being on top of the division for the foreseeable future with these other teams struggling to get things settled at coach and at quarterback.
Yeah, agreed. Stratton just added something to the chat. There is I have to say this too. I know we talking about the playoff stuff or whatever. There is an absolutely spirited debate going on between the Bryce and CJ situation we talked about earlier in the chat. And this has been going on for the last 10 minutes. And I have not gotten involved with it because if I get involved with it, I'm going to go crazy. And not crazy on a, again, Pop is one of my moderators. Y'all got to understand, me and Pop could not be more diametrically opposed when it comes to this whole situation about Bryce and CJ. But that is my man. You know what I'm saying? And has been for quite some time. So I let Pop get his takes off. But if I drop the link and bring Pop up here, I'm gonna get at you, Pop. So I'm gonna let you do your little thing in the chat. Go ahead and get your ish off in the chat. But I'm gonna leave it alone. And we're gonna keep talking about what we're talking about. But y'all keep arguing. Anyway, that being said, there was a comment that was brought up just a second ago, and I'm going to pull this, and let's see. Here it is, Stratton. Stratton says the needs. Let's talk about draft a little bit. The needs. You and I kind of hinted on this last night, so we kind of will get into some of the Bryce Young topic here in a second as it pertains to draft stuff. But you're at 19, and I think personally, and I said this earlier in the show, that Dan Morgan is going to focus building this defense primarily with more I guess veterans, if you will, not like old guys. I will say this. I do think that between Max and Trey, now whether or not they end up on the squad is one thing, but I do think that they're going to go out and make a play to get one of these veteran like guys that are proven. Whether that's Max Crosby through a trade or Trey Hendrickson through a signing, even though the trade does come with a sizable deal for somebody coming off an injury that is, a lot older. But I mean, the production speaks for itself. And Trey is one of those kind of guys. He's not, I know a lot of people are like, well, he don't fit this defense. Trey can fit in any defense. Trey can play underneath. He can play over. Trey can play in a 4-3. He can play in a 3-4. He's just one of those kind of guys. He can play with his hand in the dirt. He can play standing up. He's done it. We've seen it. And it resulted in him having the most sacks in the league just 2 years ago. So it is, well, not 2 years ago, not this past season, but the season before, right? So I'm not so much concerned with that, right? And Max is Max. Max is a consistent 10 sack plus a year guy. Max is an excellent edge setter, all of that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't be concerned about that either. I just think that some of these younger guys, you and I talk about Nakobe Dean as a linebacker. I just feel like a position like that specifically. I do think that they're going to draft a linebacker as well. I really like the kid out of Texas Tech, Jordan Rodriguez. I do not think that he'll be drafted in the first round. He's probably going to be somewhere in the third, maybe fourth round or something like that, and they take a gamble on him there. So I don't think he's like an immediate starter. I just feel like if you're not going to go, if we're saying that linebacker is one of our biggest needs, I don't see them going to the draft because I don't know. I mean, if you want to say Sonny Styles, maybe I don't know that there's a linebacker that you plug in that you would say, I trust this kid to be the starter over Roseboom and a ascending Trevin Wallace, even though he's injured a lot, right? He's terrible in coverage a lot of times, but still ascending. I would think that you would shore that up by going out and getting somebody in free agency, be that Nakobe Dean. I personally like Nakobe, but I also like Devin Lloyd from Jacksonville, and shore that position up there. Obviously, wide receiver is another position that a lot of people are talking about. Edge, as we just mentioned, free safety. But at 19, let's just talk about draft for a second. What do you think that Dan would do? Let me just throw a couple of names out there to you. Let's just say hypothetically, he said they got 600 guys that they've looked at, right? Of those 600 guys, here's a couple I guarantee you that are on the list. Ruben Baines on the list. Caleb Downs is on the list. Mekhi Lemon is on the list. Sonny Styles is on the list. David Bailey's probably on the list. Of those names that I just mentioned, let's say all of those guys are gone. And now you're left with Kenyon Sadiq or, maybe a top right tackle or left tackle or, center, or something like that. Where do you think he goes at 19? And do you think he has some aggression to go up or he stays pat and just goes best available?
Well, I don't see a trade up for an offensive player. I feel like if one falls, you take them. But in the way that they've done this kind of wide sweep of a introduction to their scouting, so with 600 players, there are a lot of guys who are projected as top talents. And I feel like the normal things that happen in a draft are, going to push them down. I mean, you're going to have your teams that want an offensive tackle. You're going to have your teams that want a quarterback. And these other guys will get pushed down. And so you'll have some of these guys like Sadiq, who, they got as like the 12th best prospect. Well, and it also depends on tomorrow what happens. But would you be angry or disappointed if they took, Messidor, the other defensive end, outside linebacker in the
for Miami?
In the Miami scheme, you know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, depending on what happens tomorrow, if they go out there tomorrow and they got Mendoza running for his life and some sack fumbles, those guys are going top 10.
Yeah. Well, I'll say that, and that game's tonight, by the way, the national championship. But you're saying the result is tomorrow. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, look, depending on who you ask, my boy, Real Ball Watcher, he think Messidor is the best on that team anyway, better than Bane. So, and at least I think that's kind of what he was getting at. So I don't want to put words in the mouth. If you hear, man, just let me know in the chat. But, yeah, that's not a pick I would sleep on. Here's the thing. I don't think that this year's pick at 19 is going to be, it's kind of like when we drafted Burns. Like Burns wasn't the sexy pick, but then you saw what it became. You know what I'm saying? Because when you draft down there, all the names that people like clamor over are at the top. But that's not where some of the best guys are in this draft anyway. Some of these best guys are going to be in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round. And if Dan shows any kind of, propensity to do what he did last year, this coming year, and I really love, there's 2 things that he does that I really love. One, he loves guys that have played big time football. There may be a guy at another school that may be like top dog there, but he still takes into consideration where you played and how you played while you were there, right? The other thing that he does is he listens to his scouts. These guys go on the road. Like, remember I told you yesterday we were talking about Cleveland, and I can't remember the context of the conversation, but we were talking about Cleveland the year that Mike Pettin had them 7-5, and they were, on the brink of a playoff berth, but they had that quarterback controversy going on between Johnny Manziel and Brian Hoyer. And I told you that the reason that they even drafted Johnny Manziel in the first place is because, your alma mater, Appalachian State, Dal Loggins was one of the, I think he was like the quarterback's coach, or he might have been the OC at that point. But him and Johnny were texting back and forth, and there was that, famous clip, hey, let's go wreck the league or whatever, that kept floating around. And it got Jimmy Haslam so hyped that he was like, take him, and he turned in the card, and they took him at 22, which was the biggest mistake. And Merrill Hodge actually got, part of him getting fired from ESPN was how, matter of fact he was about how this was going to be the worst decision Cleveland's ever made, right? Because the kid just wasn't committed to being a professional. And so sometimes you've got people inside the building, whether that's your OC, DC, whatever, that can pull the trigger or make some recommendations on a pick. That's what EJ gets killed for over the DJ Johnson situation. Even though I feel like to this day, and I've said it, I'll say it again, I don't think that EJ was so, hardcore on hey, let's go take DJ Johnson, because he's a guy that's really tall and he played mostly tight end and he moved 1 year and didn't even have the greatest production at defensive end at Oregon that year. I think it was literally that they were so starved, just like they were for a quarterback when they drafted Matt Corral and moved up for him, which was a mistake, that they were so starved for an edge rusher, they took whatever was available right there, and they were like, hey, how you feel about this? And the camera was like, you mean this guy's blah, blah, blah? And then you get on the phone with him, hey, we got to set the edge first. And so it made it look like, from the optics perspective and the propaganda, that EJ was the one that was clamoring for him, and he was the one that was standing on the table for him. That could probably be anything but the truth, right? And it could be also that your scouts tell you hey, I don't think this kid is ready. But you so thirsty for that position that I'm going to make that decision anyway. I think that Dan has kind of come in and changed that perspective. I'm going to listen to my scouts. These guys spend tons and tons and tons of time on the road watching tape, meeting these guys, meeting their parents, meeting the guy at the local pizza shop that they frequent, all this kind of stuff to find out who these guys are and then what they're made of on the field. And the results show. We see the draft from last year. You're getting production from everybody. That said, I'm like you. I think that I probably would go defense there. It would be tough for me to see someone like people are going to get enamored with Kenyon Sadiq. The reason why I wouldn't personally, and I was too, but I'm going to tell you why I personally wouldn't draft Kenyon Sadiq here. Because you don't have an offense that is tight end featured. Now, if you want to argue that he's a much better athlete than the 3 that you have that you tried out consistently and he will replace one, it's probably not going to be much of an argument from me, because will he be effective? I'm sure. But we just don't have the type of offense that's tight end centric and features tight ends. Plus, he might not even be there, at 19 when we draft anyway. And look, there's other moves you can make in free agency. I see a lot of people talking about Kyle Pitts. Now, I don't know what kind of deal that Kyle Pitts is going to command coming off of the season that he just had, but it ain't going to be a big time, acquisition. I can tell you that. You know, ain't gonna be a big time contract at all. But and then two, I mean, I think Sanders has left a lot to be desired, but I still don't think he's one like you with Excel. I'm not ready to give up on him yet. You know what I'm saying? I feel like there's still something there that I think that he just really, that neck injury was a big thing. Once upon a time, Justin Ross looked like he was going to be one of the best young receivers coming into the league, and he had a bad neck injury with Clemson, and I mean his career was all but over. It was a miracle that he was even able to play again anyway. So, my take. Dang. My boy said, peace, bro. Hope you and CJ have a nice life. Well, y'all must be getting to it. I wasn't looking at the chat. Let me see what Pop said. Pop said, you don't like talking real ball. You just want to talk about down on players and people, so I won't address you or your emotions anymore. Walk with grace. Oh, Lord, boy. These boys are do it. See what Bryce do to the fan base, and you only seeing I know some of the places that Pop be frequenting, man, or that he used to frequent. I'm telling you, you don't know, Brad, because you just don't know, because you new to the content creator space. This conversation about this guy, it gets toxic, bro. It gets bad.
What I mean, it's always been that with a quarterback. I mean, while Cam Newton was setting rookie records in passing, people were still like, I don't like this guy. It's all about him. You know, I mean, think about the Charlotte Observer where they had him doing the Superman and it was a Hello Kitty on his chest. Yeah. Like the whole thing with Jordan Rodriguez, and it's funny to hear, you know, women talk about routes and then everybody jumping on him and like, I mean, and it just, he's stupid. He's a big dumb ogre. Like, this is a thing that always happens. It's just, this is what's present and what's recent. But yeah, I mean, if you're a starting quarterback other than a Brady or a Mahomes, it's going to be very polarizing. People are going to be like, I like him for this. I hate him for this. I like him because of that. I hate him for that. And they're going to go in.
Yeah.
And you feel like, you know what I'm saying? And whatever side you're on, you want to defend that with, let's gnashing of teeth. Because
let's get back to it for a little bit then.
You don't want to be wrong.
Join. Yeah, I'm willing to join. Let's go back to it for a little bit. You're right. You know, that you said it. The gnashing of teeth. It is very, very much tribalistic when it comes to the belief about quarterbacks. So we're going to go back to it. Look, let's go back to what Troy Aikman said again about CJ. I know some of y'all didn't like this, but we're going to play it again anyway.
History, but I will say this, Joe. D'Amico Ryans and Nick Caserio, they've got some tough decisions they've got to make about this team on the offensive side of the ball. You know, they replaced Bobby Slowick last year after his 2 years as the offensive coordinator. C.J. Stroud has been chasing his rookie success for the last 2 years. He's not been the same player. We've not seen the development from him. There's a reason for that, and it has to be addressed.
Here's Bryant. Passes too high and off his hands. It's 4th down.
Man, you see that? Look at D'Amico.
You bring up a great...
D'Amico, he can't believe it. And the thing is like I said, all that stuff can be true about, you know, what he was, who he, you know what I'm saying, his circumstances, all the things that have gone wrong, if you will, right? But like that play right there was kind of indicative of how the night was going and how it's been going for him for quite some time now. That to me is what they call it, the yips. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a mental block there. And I do think that he can get over that. Now the question has started to rise, and this is just what happens. Like I'm going to tell you the grossest channel out there, man, whether it's about Stroud, whether it's about Herbert, Josh Allen, man, them dudes speak easy. Like, I really want to like LaShawn McCoy. I really want to sometimes like Acho. Them dudes some busters, bro. Especially that dude, the little light-skinned dude that they got on there. Like, this dude, like, I wanted to clip one of their videos, but they respond to people. And I'm not above being responded to, and we can do that all day long, right? But I'm like, I don't really... With the way my health's set up right now, I don't need that kind of stuff in my life. But we beat the Cowboys this year, and one of their moderators is a big time Cowboy fan. So obviously anything that Bryce does is just, nothing in his eyes because of that. But just hearing their takes about CJ, hearing their takes about, Josh Allen, all this kind of stuff. I mean, we all got these takes to some degree, but they go a little overboard, especially Acho for his position and what he was in football. Like, I've always said, I recognize that I didn't play in the NFL. I didn't even play on your level. If y'all don't know, Brad played at the highest level of football with the Appalachian State Mountaineers. Yes, the Appalachian State Mountaineers, and he was very good. Brad was telling me a story last night about how he was recruited by State and Wake Forest and all this kind of stuff, and he was name dropping. And I was like, Brad, I know you're trying to make me feel bad, you know what I'm saying, because I didn't finish playing football. I mean, you could just say that, you know what I'm saying. You ain't got to throw it in my face, bro. I know what you're doing, but I'm always respectful when I talk about these players because they do something. There's so much that goes into it. And I've heard so many people say for so long that quarterback is the hardest position in all of sports to play because of how much you have to remember, because of how fast you have to operate, because you're relying on so many different variables of things like a guy running the proper route, protection, and now you're out there playing in the elements. But all of that stuff is still all excuses. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you've seen a guy do it at a high level. So clearly there's something going on there. That being said, before we get back to the conversation that's going on in the chat, I got a question for you. There's not a chance. People are actually questioning whether or not they should pick up Stroud's fifth-year option. That's a conversation that's happening this morning. He just won 12 games. He's been to the playoffs 3 years in a row. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? There's not a chance in the world I'm letting that kid out of my
that would have to be part of. That has to be part of a tinfoil hat, bigger conspiracy thing to get him up out of there and get him to a city that's more. I mean, the city's more well known than Houston, but just more well known for football, and try to get him to an organization like the Steelers or somewhere like that, and then boom, he takes off. But yeah, I feel like with their record, and like I said, I mean, there have been games even this year, where he played really, really well, and a couple games where their defense didn't do as well. He played well and they won games.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see. I mean, it's going to cost you way less to pay him next year, which that's part of his contract. But and then to pick up the option and see where you go from there. And I would definitely. I feel like Troy Aikman and them are also kind of saying you may want to do something else with your offensive coordinator. These slow developing plays, plus. Sometimes you got to bite that bullet, man. They're going to have to go sign some offensive linemen. They're going to have to invest heavily in the draft on offensive linemen. They need to try to get another receiver. So they got a lot of questions, but I don't think the keeping CJ in the fold is one of them.
Yeah. That's very interesting. We did have a super chat that came in that I didn't address, and I apologize about that. This super chat comes from James EX3. James EX3 says, if we can't count wins, let's do individual accolades. CJ Stroud, offensive rookie of the year and Pro Bowl, and Bryce. I like Bryce, but we crowning him for a minimum. I don't necessarily think that's a bad take. I do think that people like me jump out the window because I'm just happy to see the kid have success. On this channel, when we done our draft evals and everything, at the end of it all, it's not tribalistic with me, right? It wasn't. Let's rewind back to that for a moment. When we did our offseason acquisitions, free agency, the one move that we made that made me think that they were not going to draft Stroud was when they got Miles Sanders. I just knew then. I was like, oh, okay, so Miles Sanders, they're bringing him in. They're probably going to draft Anthony Richardson. They may take a chance on this kid. Now, whether or not they start him right away will be, remain to be seen. But if you bring in a guy whose production was elevated by the fact that you spent 70% of your snaps in shotgun, and let's say maybe 40% of your play calls were RPOs, of course you would think that they would bring in a guy that was a running threat. Because Miles Sanders had 1,200 something yards, all total yards, I should say, and looked really good in that offense. You're not going to run many RPOs with Bryce Young because he doesn't give you the option for the run part, even though we did talk about yesterday. We did see that in the game against the Rams, and I think that they're going to implement that a lot more next year. And I also think it'll be interesting to see what they do with the wide receiver room, considering that they can run a lot of RPOs with Bryce, because you don't necessarily have to have the run part in the offense if you have a good running game, right? But they drafted Bryce. Many people thought it would be CJ. I mean, it's not lost on me that when you watch, think about this. You're Frank Reich. You took over Indianapolis after winning the Super Bowl with the Eagles. And you get what many people say is the next John Elway, right? And that guy, he has his best statistical season. Now, y'all didn't have the same amount of success that he had because Andrew Luck did make the AFC Championship as a rookie. But he had the best statistical season he had to that point with you, right? And then he leaves, quits. And now you're left kind of wondering, like, well, what are we going to do at the most important position on our team? Well, you don't know. And then you end up getting fired, right? Well, you come and take over this job, and in your evals, you see this kid that is the closest thing that you've seen to that guy that you were coaching up there. And he is right there in your lap. So, of course, you would see things like Frank using his phone to record C.J. Stroud while he's out there throwing at the pro day, and then get the clip of Josh McCown saying to him, like, yeah, we'll hoop when I see you in Charlotte. Some people try to clean that up and be like, oh, no, he meant when he came down for the top 30 visits. Nah, we knew what he meant. Because I was one of those people that thought that too. And it was like, no. After all this stuff that's starting to come out now, all these years later, he meant what he said. We're taking you. They were fascinated. And then you fast forward to the draft, to the Bryce Young pro day. And you're just kind of sitting there, That was a look on his face the whole time, holding his hand. Bryce's dad coming up to him trying to sell the job. More than likely done talk to, David Tepper. David's like, hey, we taking Bryce. So now I got to go sell it to the head coach. All right, cool. And then they take him. And then you get fired halfway through the season. Yeah. That was a really weird spot for a kid to get drafted into. My biggest question of the whole argument that everybody else is having as it pertains to Bryce and CJ, given the circumstances that we've seen recently, do you think that if the circumstances were the same, I'm not really liked, I'm kind of in a shadow, they don't really want me, all this other kind of stuff, do you think that CJ could have handled that the same way Bryce could have? I'm not saying he could or if he couldn't, but I do think that that's important in this conversation because it's the reality of what happened. And now this young man is starting to turn things around. And in some ways, yeah, it's inconsistent for sure, but sometimes he's thriving. And in that playoff game on the biggest stage when everybody was watching, he had a drive and was within a drive of potentially closing the deal. So yeah, it might look like a minimum to most, but to people like me, who's a content creator, who's seen this from the beginning, and to people like me, who's a fan of a team that hasn't won a division in 10 years, and to people like me, who hadn't been to the playoffs in 8, and to be on the brink of actually the divisional round with that guy at quarterback who everybody told me, A, was too little, B, was too soft, and C, was inaccurate, and all this kind of stuff, even though we've seen anything but in a lot of circumstances, yeah, I'm giving you your flowers. But that's just me. Can't speak for you. That's just me. Shout out to my man, Vietnam. Love your interaction with the chat, bro. Keep up the fire content, man. I appreciate you, man. Appreciate you very much. But yeah, that's me, and I'm sticking to it. Shout out to my man, Brad. Shout out to the chat. 202 watching between two platforms, 73 likes. Make sure to smash that like button. For my first-time listeners, hello. Last-time listeners, hello. People who think I'm crazy, hello. People who love us, like my man Fayed Nam, hello. And Brad, what's your prediction for the division? I mean, for the championship games, man?
I think it's going to be LA. I feel like that vaunted Seattle defense, I mean, they're all over the place, but you can make some strides on the edge. They came within a missed field goal of losing the last time they played the Rams. And I just feel like, I mean, it's just shaping up to be one of those ride off into the sunset type situations with Matt Stafford. I mean, in preseason, the guy could barely walk because his back was hurting. And then all of a sudden he comes out, he's got an MVP season. He's got two of the best receivers in football. He missed some throws last night. He really did. But I mean, I feel like that's another week for his finger to heal up or to feel better. And then, you know how I feel about Sam Darnold. Like I'm gonna need to see him win a championship on his end for me not to call him Sam Darnold. We talked about Chad about defenses carrying quarterbacks, and Kenneth Walker, Seattle defense, y'all done a great job with brother Sam Darnold. And then on the other end, I mean, this Patriots train just looks a little too familiar to the mid-2000s, plus you add a quarterback who's got mobility. I mean, it used to be funny, like we used to laugh. I'm a Tar Heel fan, so when we'd watch Carolina football games and it'd be like Bob Dole. Bob Dole doesn't do things for Bob Dole because it's Bob Dole. They'd be like, man, Drake May on the Drake May because it's Drake May. I mean, Drake May passes, and when Drake May is doing his thing, you can't stop Drake May because it's Drake May. And the kid has come out this year with once they can Mayo, he's come out this year and he's looked every bit of, an MVP runner-up. He's made some big throws. The throws he misses haven't been throws that have really hurt him. He dropped a couple in the breadbasket yesterday. And again, the early Stephon Diggs returns that, when he first gets there, he separates, he catches anything you throw at him, and then he usually kind of tapers off towards the end. And this Booty kid, I mean, yeah, one-handed in the back of the end zone. I mean, wow, you know what I mean? And they're just Vrabel's always had a consistent defense. And Peyton's a great coach, man, but I don't think he can overcome losing his starting quarterback and all that he provides with his athleticism. And I was thinking about that early. We were talking, about Mendoza. Mm-hmm. This might be the new norm for a little bit, especially with all the NIL stuff, is these 23 to 25-year-old quarterbacks coming into the league that's played 5 or 6 years of college ball, and they just taking off and being super consistent.
Well, that's
in the
why
NFL. I mean, we've seen it.
Don't count out a guy like Garrett Nussmeier because, I know, or Carson Beck, because the luxury that these guys are going to have is that they will likely fall to a situation that's much better suited for them than Mendoza with the Raiders. You know what I'm saying? Because they're going to be it's just a better roster for them, right? So they may end up on, the Miami or something like that, where it's a much better, like, yeah, Miami's picking high, but it's still a better fit, like when Lamar fell to, the Ravens, right? Or, hey, look, I don't think Davis Mills is the guy that you're going to bring in for competition, but I mean, you might bring somebody in to compete with CJ, next year, just to see, what happens, one of these older guys. And I've said this too, and Dan kind of alluded to this. I do think in the press conference, we didn't listen to this portion of it. And the reason I kind of clipped the press conference is because my internet was kind of clipping it, so I didn't want to, deal with all that. But Dan did mention in the press conference about them bringing in, potentially getting younger at quarterback. So I don't know that means that they draft a guy, and I've said that, for a little while now, that I think that they'll draft a guy in this draft cycle, or they'll bring in somebody younger, be that a Mac Jones. I just think if you bring in Mac Jones, one, he's going to command a contract that you're probably not going to want to pay. So it probably would, in my opinion, would be that you're going to draft a guy for development's sake. But there are guys out there. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo's out there. Mac Jones is out there. Geno's still out there. I mean, Geno's not a younger guy, but he's not super, super old. But
oh no. Hey man, Geno had that bit of a resurgence with Kenneth Walker doing the heavy lifting and hard play action, but nah, man. And the thing about Matt Corkle Jones is Matt Corkle is not just going to cost you money as like paying a contract. He's under contract with the Niners, so you're going to have to send some draft picks that way to get him.
Yeah.
And I think there will be teams that'll be on the doorstep waiting to bid way before somebody like us could get in.
Well, as I mentioned, man, you got to put some respect on Sam Darnold's name. I think Seattle's going to win the Super Bowl. I do think that I'm not going to count out the Broncos because it's Sean Payton. And you could see a little smirk on his face when he was talking about Jarrett Stidham, and he, maybe he sees something we don't see. I don't know. New England drafted him. Now he ended up in, Denver. So who knows? But I wouldn't count Sean out at all. And that defense is, I mean, the Patriots wouldn't be there if Stroud doesn't turn the ball over as many times as he did. If they could get something on offense, because that defense, like, they held them in check for most of the game, but you can only do that for so long. And if that same,
well, most of that, I mean, yeah. I mean, and a lot of that was, like you said, it was tip pass and stuff like that. But Jarrett Stidham, man. Jarrett Stidham do you remember a guy named Kevin Kolb that everybody used to talk about with the Eagles? And like he always looked decent, when he got a little playing time here and there. But when they started that season off with him and they were like, he's our starter, Kevin Kolb show, and the first 2 quarters, they had to pull the grass out of his helmet like 6 times.
Yeah.
And
I remember that.
That was the end of that. And then they brought in Mike Vick.
Yeah, Vick beat him out. Yeah. Well, actually, Vick was there already. Because it was, man, they had him. Shoot, I literally just watched the pod where Donovan McNabb was sitting down with a guy talking about that. They had McNabb, Vick, and Kevin Kolb on the roster all at the same time. Yeah. And then McNabb ended up getting traded to Washington.
Dang.
Yeah. McNabb got traded because they were going to move on from McNabb regardless. And McNabb kind of, helped bring in Vick and, get him acclimated with Andy and all that kind of stuff. And they end up trading McNabb to Washington. And then Kevin Kolb started for a little while. And then Vick came in after that. Shoot, Vick almost won the MVP that year, man. A lot of people said that he probably would have won the MVP, especially if they'd have won that last game against Green Bay. But also, I think it was going to be tough for him to win the MVP coming off of all the stuff that he had been through. And because even, bro, I'm going to tell you, the crazy thing with Vick, dog, is like, and look, I did not, no pun intended when I said dog at the end of that. That's just euphemism.
Yeah, you did. Hide your beagle, Vixen Eagle.
Man. Anyway, with Vick, though, it was people showing up, even when Vick was at, because, Vick played for Pittsburgh for a short time, and he played for the Jets for a short time. man, they would have people outside picketing at the Jet. They was on Vic's top, bro. At the Jets game, at the Pittsburgh game, it would be people outside protesting that Vic was on the team. Like, it was crazy. Like, folks don't play about their dogs, bro. And I don't blame them. I thought it was gross, but yeah, I mean, I felt like Vic paid his debt to society, but yeah, they was on his top, but. Yeah, I agree with Panther Pickle here. He said many of the holes will be filled in free agency, likely in the middle or late free agency rounds. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I'll ask you this, Pickle, and I'll also ask you this, Brad. How would you feel now? Cade Mays is up for a deal, right? So he's a free agent. There's some people that believe that there's a lot left to be desired there. I like the chemistry that they have. And I don't think Cade is going to get a humongous deal, but one that is fitting. But what if they decide, from a performance perspective, that they want to go get Tyler Linderbaum, who I really, really liked in that draft, by the way. Although if you sign him, he is going to get a monster deal if he leaves Baltimore. Would you think that that's more important? And so now you got an offensive line that's got, God, I mean, you talk about the money. That's Damian.
Yeah, you
got
like
Tyler.
You got like over 120 million tied up in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but would you object if Tyler Linderbaum was the guy that they went out for?
Yeah, I would object to that because I feel like that comes at the expense of things you need. Cade Mays is serviceable to decent.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you re-sign Brady again and he's healthy, Brady can be your backup center and he's average to above average. I mean, I want a splash guy. And whether that's Max Crosby or the kid in Cincinnati, like I would like a splash guy, outside linebacker. I feel like you do that, then in the draft, you can set yourself up to go get a Peter Woods or somebody to take advantage of because I mean, I feel like we're going to move on from A'Shawn Robinson. He did well for us. His contract was decent, but like, I mean, he's one of those guys you're going to have to pay in the 10 to 12 million range. I feel like you go get a Peter Woods, you pair him with, Derek Brown, Bobby Brown, and up and coming Cam Jackson, or you use that money to go get a Nakobe Dean. Because the thing is, if you put that money on defense and shore up some of these holes. Someone talked about Curl in the chat. We were talking about Curl last night. Both of those safeties for the Rams are going to be available.
Yep.
So it's looking like we're not going to be, in the running for like a Caleb Downs. And you do. I mean, you need better than Nick Scott production. You just do.
I agree.
So you shore up something in free agency. At one of those positions, you give yourself leniency and room at other positions. Like, so if you shore up the outside linebacker thing, then you can go get a CJ Allen out of Georgia, big time linebacker. You know what I'm saying? First round grade, smart, plays well in coverage, comes up, stops the run, madman. Or if you go get Curl, someone like that, then you can, focus on outside linebacker in the first round in the way of a, Ruben Bain, Messidor, even the kid out of Texas A&M, Hal. I mean, it's just like there are a lot of options, and so it's just a time when I really feel like we have what we need to succeed on the offensive side of the ball. We just really need to let that mature. Guys need to step up and guys need to get a year better.
Yeah.
Because you think about what we were able to do at the very end with Bryce, T-Mac, and, Coker. dude, over the summer, they're going to get a whole nother summer. Maybe, XL comes in, gets on the team, and comes in for the big win. Jimmy, concentration, all those things. JT comes back healthy. I mean, the guy had an ankle injury. It's not like he tore his ACL or anything big like that, because I know people are talking about moving on from him. And then, I mean, hey, we talked about it last night, Glazing, boy, Dave Canales has a super hard-on pause for Jonathan Brooks. I mean, he's looking at him like it's about to be that time, and once this kid gets healthy, it's about to take off. So you sign Cade Mays, you re-sign Brady, and you look at some options. I feel like I'm on the Drew Allard train. You know what I'm saying? Try to get him 3rd round, 4th round, depending. He did mess his knee up. Kid's got a howitzer. He's young. He's coachable. I feel like you can get him in the 3rd or the 4th. First 3 rounds, defense, free agency, defense, and you re-sign some of these guys. I don't really know what you do with Austin Corbett. I know the guy was a Super Bowl champ, but man, he just anyway. But yeah, man, like this is, I think we got to focus on defense. And I understand like the scouts may be like, listen, there aren't any guys out here as good that can help us as much as, Kenyon Sadiq can, and he's still there. So we should pick him. But I told you, like, I'm not as high on those Ohio State linebackers. Just to see Miami run the ball down their throat, I don't care how big and athletic they are and as fast as they are. I don't want to see that for the next 5 years and wanting them to fill in. But C.J. Allen and
I like
Ruben Bain, Peter Woods, those guys, they fill in, they stop the run. And then as far as linebacker concerned, and then, like C.J. Allen can cover at middle linebacker. I really like that. And then, like I said, Ruben Bain, Messidor, dude, not only are they a product of a good team, man, they've been coached by a Hall of Famer in Jason Taylor. And you talking about Dan Morgan, talking about playing under the lights, not being overwhelmed, knowing what it takes to win, knowing what it takes to be a professional. Those guys, both of them, on Miami's defensive line, both of those guys are ready. So
they like your Drew Aller selection or suggestion. So that's cool. And then I think C.J. Allen, my boy, Real Ball Watcher, did a Patreon eval. If you're not subscribed, man, I'm telling you, this dude, and I'm gonna link with him again, especially during the draft, because he's just really, really talented. Like he's a great draft evaluator. He'll be at the Senior Bowl, so he's boots on the ground. I'm not gonna do the dance, I promise. But he's gonna be everywhere when it comes to all this draft evaluation stuff. But he had a really interesting Patreon video. If you're not subscribed to his Patreon, I'll put the link in the description on C.J. Allen. And I feel like C.J. is one of those guys that's going to get overlooked, kind of like Carson Schwechender did last year. But you saw what the result was of that, with him in Cleveland. So I really like C.J. Allen. And if he's there, I think that's a guy you strongly consider, right there at the 19 spot. But the thing is, man, is that all these guys are going to develop. I do find it interesting that clip that was going around with Princely and, what he had to say about the last drive, even though Princely kind of went in the direction that really didn't have a whole lot to do with the last drive, when he was just talking about like, how these guys are, how they're being utilized or whatever in this scheme. And look, we saw what Nick Bonito was doing on Saturday, wreaking havoc, in the backfield. And Nick Bonito had the shackles put on him by Evero as a rookie, because Evero just does not like to play rookies, which is something that wherever he goes to get his head coaching spot, because I do believe, I've said that at the beginning of the show, I do believe that Evero is 100% going to get a job now, because there's 10 openings and his name is floating out there more than just about anybody else's, not named Harbaugh, not named, Stefanski, who has now got a job, all that kind of stuff, right? But when you have those interviews and they start asking you about rookies and you get reluctant, and you're, talk back to them about how you don't like to play rookies or whatever, that's going to be an interesting conversation to have, because how do we know that you don't have something more than what you have in, Princely? Now, Princely had some injuries this year, but are you telling me that DJ Wanham was a better choice to trot out there every week than Princely? I have a hard time believing that. But again, if you don't like to play rookies, I think if Pat Jones was healthy, we would have saw limited action from Nick Scorton this year. It would have been mostly Pat Jones. We'd have saw him in rotation, but he wouldn't have had as much of an impact as he did have. So if you whatever rookies you're going to bring in, you better hope you have somebody that's willing to, if these guys are showing up in camp, let them be who they are and prove it. You know what I'm saying? And then as far as some of the free agency stuff that everybody was mentioning, I'm of the like that believe that they're going to go after. Somebody had said in the chat, I think it was the red guy, said something about like, enough of these little small base hits, like take the big swing, get the big fish, whatever, and go after a Max or a Trey or, somebody that, of note. And I think that's going to happen. I really do. I think that and now you've got because you got to think about this too. You can take those big swings, but we saw what happened last year. We tried to take the big swing. Milton Williams was the big swing, and he opted to go to New England, and that worked out well for him, right? So sometimes it's the organization. The best thing that happened to Carolina was what you did where everybody could see it. Because in your heart, you could think this. If you're Max, man, if I was on that defense and I got to face the Rams, there's no way they would have scored on me right there, and we would have went to the divisional round. If you're Trey, you're thinking the same thing. Or any of these other guys out there that have opportunities to go to any one of these spots. Hey, man, let's take a look at Carolina. Because if we were there, that wouldn't have happened. I could even argue if we were there, we would have sold up the division 3 to 4 weeks prior. If we were there, we might be in the NFC Championship right now if they were doing what they're doing on offense, and we could do what we do on defense. So that's something to think about. It leads me to be extremely excited about our future. Man, it's been a great show today, but I'm not staying on here forever. I appreciate y'all so much for joining me. Mint Street Mondays. If this is your first time here, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe button, and bell notification so you don't miss a video. Very much appreciate all that were here today. I saw a very spirited conversation in the chat. Saw some other stuff in the chat that I'm not personally going to address because I don't do that over here. But salute to everybody out there in Panther Nation, who you like, who you don't like, where you like to frequent, where you don't frequent. I appreciate you being here. We worried about us over here, and that's it, right? But to my man, Invisible Brad, any last words?
Let's see what we got today. Well, we're in the free agency period as far as, there are practice squad guys are starting to be, their contracts are starting to expire, and then we'll get towards March. At some point we'll go over, like I said, the stay or go free agent stuff. And I really feel like Cade Mays, a couple of those guys we need to keep, and we do. We need to make, I would like to make a big splash, get some sort of guys that are big time players. Curl would be one on my list. Just guys that are never really out of position, guys that hit hard, guys that catch interceptions when they come their way. I am super excited about our off season because we only have a couple things that we really need to address. We've got great cornerbacks. We've got a decent D-line. We've got up and coming, outside pass rushers. We need to get a big difference maker on the D-line. And that's, counting outside linebacker in the 3-4. Re-sign our offensive line that are going to be free agents, minus Corbett. And, man, the draft will be our oyster. And, man, look out what comes next year.
I love it, man. Hey, listen, on this day, I see a lot of pleasantries in the chat, and I'm very thankful. The red guy said, thanks for doing what you do. Brad as well, I'm very appreciative. I'll leave you guys with this. on this MLK holiday. MLK once had a quote that I thought was excellent, and this is how I try to attack and approach everything in my life. If a man is called to be a street sweeper, he should sweep the streets even as if Michelangelo painted or Beethoven composed music or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep the streets so well that the host of heaven and earth will pause to say, here lived the greatest street sweeper who did his job well. I think that is something that we can all strive to do in our lives, is to be the best version of who we are, whatever it is that you do, and to do it to the best of your ability. So I'll leave you with that and a clip from one of the most famous speeches, one of the last speeches from Dr. King before he was tragically taken away. And his greatness will continue to live on. So until I see you guys next time, man, I appreciate y'all being a part of this podcast, this show. Man, Mint Street Mondays has become quite a thing. It has become quite the staple in this community, and it's only going to get better and grow more. And it's because of you guys, and I'm very thankful for that. So until I see you next time, keep pounding.
We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will, and He's allowed me to go up to the mountain, and I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get